It opens greater options for you from, say, Al-Assad and cover the entire battle space in 30 minutes.
The Osprey can reach heights unimagined in the best helicopters, up to 26,000 feet. And it can get to that ceiling at almost 12 meters per second. The Osprey's speed and altitude make it a difficult, elusive target, with flares that increase its survivability against heat-seeking missiles. It's also manufactured with carbon fiber, a futuristic, high-tech layered material that is as strong as steel and able to absorb ballistic damage and limit its spread from the point of impact. For self-defense, the Osprey is outfitted with one weapon, a .30 machine gun mounted on the plane's loading ramp, which faces backwards. Plans are in the works to add a forward-facing, 3-barrel Gatling gun in the near future. The technical wizardry that makes the Osprey both a plane and a helicopter is contained in huge devices known as nacelles, pieces of equipment that sit like pods on the wings outside the plane and just behind the cockpit. The nacelles are what move the blades back and forth into different positions, up as a helicopter, down as a plane.
As far as the nacelles themselves rolling up and down, there's a giant screw run by a hydraulic motor. Once again, electronically controlled from the cockpit. Wherever they request them, the screw turns and moves the nacelles up and down.
What is perhaps most stunning is that the pilot does it all with the touch of a button, a very tiny button, no bigger than a quarter, that moves the 7,000-pound nacelles that change the Osprey from a helicopter into a plane and back again. The button is known as a thumb wheel.
This 7,000-plus pound nacelle with a 38-foot diameter rotor system is completely controlled by a thumb wheel. Your hand rests on the thrust control lever, just kind of like that, and your thumb naturally falls on a thumb wheel. It's an extraordinarily powerful control surface, all controlled via this tiny little button.
Kind of a standing joke that we have when guys, pilots are wrestling around, you know, we always protect our left thumb, because if that goes down, then, you know, then the pilot's hard down.
In the practiced hands of Marine Squadron VMM 263, the Osprey now stands poised for duty in the desert sands of Iraq. More than 20 years ago, in another desert not far away, the idea for the Osprey was born. In 1979, more than 3,000 extremist students in Iran seized the U.S. Embassy. Then President Jimmy Carter ordered a mission to rescue 66 hostages.
Planning for this rescue effort began shortly after our embassy was seized.
But the mission was a disaster, ending in aircraft crashing in southern Iran at a remote location codenamed Desert One.
To my deep regret, 8 of the crewmen of the 2 aircraft were killed.
That disaster led to demands to develop a new type of aircraft that could not only take off and land vertically, but also could carry combat troops and do so at speed. By 1982, a partnership of Bell Helicopter and Boeing had won a U.S. government contract. They had Ospreys on the drawing board and later in testing. The plane first took to the skies on March 19, 1989. But with costs quickly doubling, the Osprey ran into major political opposition. Worse than that, the Osprey also encountered a series of crashes. The first crash occurred in 1991, with all crew members miraculously escaping alive. In 1992, a second crash killed 9 on board, 4 Marines and 5 civilians. But the worst was yet to come. In another 8 years, there would be 2 more crashes, killing 23 Marines.
Well, I mean, if you're going to talk tough times, it would probably, at least in my experience, it begin with the mishap in Arizona, in Marana, Arizona, in April 2000. You know, that combined with the mishap later in the year in December of 2000, right there in eastern North Carolina. I mean, both, you know, tremendous tragedies in and of themselves, both aircraft were full of friends of mine.
A witness to the April crash in Arizona, Rock was flying in formation in one of 4 Ospreys, waiting to go into a landing zone.
One section was going in to put some Marines in, while the second section was holding because we were going in to help with the extract.
From a couple of miles back, Rock saw everything start to go wrong.
You could absolutely see what was going on. We got a little side view mirror in the cockpit, and the first thing I saw was a reflected flash of that. I don't ever see light in my rearview mirror at night anymore and not think about that night.
That crash was blamed on pilot error, but the crash in December 2000 was caused by faulty wiring and possible design flaws. The program was put on hold. At first, investigators thought that the nacelles, the essence of the Osprey's function, would have to be reinvented.
There's no doubt about it. The aircraft was this close to not happening anymore. If they hadn't figured that out, again, the impression was the program may have been canceled.
In time, investigators and engineers found ways to fix those technical problems and save the program. But the Osprey's bad reputation hung on and began to be automatically attached to any mention of it in the media. It was inevitably described as the troubled V-22 Osprey. Today, these pilots and crews are now ready to go. After flying and working on the Osprey for 2 years, they want to put the memories of the tragedies behind them. Despite the old track record, they say, the Osprey's day has come. In fact, those whose lives depend on the Osprey are now its strongest defenders.
We all have families. I have 3 kids. I have a beautiful wife. None of us have any desire to be flying an aircraft that we think is going to kill us.
But as much as the commander and his pilots support the Osprey V-22, can the aircraft survive its naysayers? Those who would judge the plane on its troubled past and not its potential. Even worse, could they cancel the Osprey's future before it even sees combat? Finally, 2 months after the V-22 Osprey arrive in Iraq, the revolutionary but controversial aircraft is assigned to carry troops into combat.
But we're going to be working this area.
The squadron has been ordered to prepare for assault missions, to carry teams of Marine infantry forces on the offense into the vast deserts of western Iraq's Anbar province. It's a brutal region made famous by the Battle of Fallujah. Some see it as the crucible of U.S. efforts in Iraq. Osprey Crew Chief Joshua DeBoer knows all too well how bad it's been and how valuable the Osprey can be. He first served in Iraq in 2004, flying as a crew chief in a CH-46 Sea Knight Frog helicopter, the Osprey's predecessor. In the Battle of Fallujah, DeBoer was in the lead chopper returning to base after dropping off troops when his helicopter came under attack from rocket-propelled grenades.
Just south of Fallujah there, we took RPG fire, and one of the RPGs hit us. It took out one engine, our electrical power, and our hydraulic power all in one shot. So we didn't have a lot to work with, needless to say.
DeBoer and another Marine were in the back of the Frog. Flying at about 100 feet off the ground, the pilots decided to try to make it back on one engine. But then fire broke out in the back of the helicopter.
We tried to put it out. We couldn't put it out. Meanwhile, the entire time, the fire's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
With the flames now wrapping around them, DeBoer and his partner were trapped.
I'm guessing between 20 and 50 feet, my other crew chief probably jumped out of the aircraft while we were still in the air. We hit the ground. The impact threw me into the cockpit face first, smashing my face against the instrument panel.
The helicopter crashed and burned. Amazingly, everyone on board escaped alive, although several with serious injuries, including DeBoer.
30% of my body with second-degree burns and lacerations to my face. You could actually see my skull in a couple of spots. It was kind of cool.
His trip to hell and back taught him one big lesson, that it is better to fly high and fast, as in the Osprey, and stay far away from ground fire.
I feel safer flying faster and higher in this aircraft than I do at 200 feet and half the speed is what we do now. I do not fear for my life anytime I fly, so.
As they prepare for their new missions, the pilots and crew chiefs gather in their ready rooms, top secret, high-tech centers lined with maps of the region and equipped with sophisticated computer programs. Here they plan every moment of the missions they face, every corner of the terrain over which they will fly, and every challenge they will encounter. As both a pilot and a ground forces commander, Major Bob Brody has considerable experience in the Anbar region. He thinks the Osprey is a particularly good fit for this battle space.
It has some unique capabilities to land in desert terrain that would be very difficult for a helicopter to land in, which is going to enable Marines to get into places that we couldn't get into before. I think if we maintain flexibility and can go after very small targets very quickly, what we do is we deny the enemy the ability to maneuver. And we interdict them, we disrupt them to the point where they can't mass and they cannot attack us.
For the first time, the Osprey will face a tactical mission. The big moment is here. 6 other aircraft will join the Ospreys on the missions. With 24 hours to go, all aircraft and infantry commanders converge to finalize exact logistics and what role each of them will play.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I think you all know me, Brody, call signs BAMS. There's obviously from our planning preparation for this thing this is a very complex mission in comparison to what we're used to be doing. So I think that it's going to require that everyone's on their A game for tomorrow, above and beyond what we're used to.
There are still plenty of ground commanders who remain skeptical and worry about putting their troops aboard such a controversial aircraft. One of their major concerns, the Ospreys lack the ability to auto-rotate, an emergency maneuver executed by helicopter pilots if their engines fail. In auto-rotation, a pilot uses downdraft to get the rotors spinning as fast as possible to regain control of an aircraft and soften a crash landing. Because of its different design, the Osprey can't do this maneuver. But the team is confident they don't need auto-rotation. With its awesome horsepower, the Osprey can fly on one of its 2 engines in an emergency.
The chances of having 2 engines stop working at the same time are minuscule.
I can't imagine both engines, receiving battle damage at the same time. If both engines are shot up, you probably have other issues, and auto-rotation is probably the last thing you're going to have to think about.
But there are other problems. In part because of its speed, one of the real challenges will be how to fly the Osprey at safe distances from other aircraft. Deconfliction, or keeping space between all the aircraft on the missions to avoid collisions, is an object of concern.
Deconfliction and working and operating around other aircraft, it's a serious business. It's honestly a meeting of the minds. It's a roundtable discussion, figuring out where assets need to be, and that is the next step. You can deconflict by altitude, by time, or by lateral, just by slapping a boundary down. Hey, you own this side, I own that side.
This aerial ballet, and which is what it's going to work out to be tomorrow. And I know we'll do well, but just remember that the reason we're out there is to interdict, disrupt, and conduct, scouting and screening. And I think we're going to learn a lot tomorrow out there.
The moment of truth is fast approaching. Tensions are high. It has taken decades to get to this point, but the squadron knows the morning will come.